Now, as we delve into the intricacies of the 2024 post-election possibilities for South Africa, potential threats and possibilities for the country remain uncertain. And joining me to unpack the various scenarios that could shape the nation's future, for better or for worse, is acting editor for Financial Mail, Natasha Marrian. Thank you so much for your time, Natasha. Now, the fact that we're facing a great possibility of a coalition government on a national level for the first time, does this underpin a certain maturity in our political landscape?
Hi, Vanessa. Yes, absolutely. South Africa's democracy is 30 years old, and our democratic system of governance was designed for exactly this scenario that we're entering into. So, as much as people talk about uncertainty, and yes, there's going to be a lot of uncertainty, this is in fact what our proportional representative system was designed for. So, as much as there are threats, this is our democracy maturing.
Does a coalition government significantly change the fundamentals if the ANC does still remain the dominant party?
It absolutely can, Zadati. We're also not necessarily new to coalitions. We know that the ANC and IFP governed KwaZulu-Natal in a coalition in the first decade of our democracy. There was a period where they did govern together. And then we know the DA under former leader Helen Zille first held together a very complex coalition in the city of Cape Town, and then more broadly in the Western Cape, and there was relative success there. Where we saw the system really failing is after the 2016 election, when there was a multiplicity of new parties coming into the space, and when smaller parties took over the running of metros, and just couldn't cope with hanging together these complex coalitions. So I think there is a chance that we could do it better at national and provincial government than we have been doing it in local government.
Well, considering the predictions that we are seeing so far, what could be the worst possible scenario for the ANC, and could a worst case scenario for the ANC be detrimental to the country?
I think the worst possible scenario for the ANC will be the worst possible scenario for the country as well. And that worst possible scenario is actually emerging in polling from various quarters. I personally don't think it's going to get there. I don't believe that the ANC is going to fall under 40%. That would mean a 17 percentage point decline in, and we just haven't had those kinds of political shifts in South Africa as yet. And I don't see anything in the political environment that would cause such a shift. Many people talk about Jacob Zuma's MK party, but again, under Jacob Zuma, the ANC lost support. Yes, he may take some support from the party out of the disgruntled faction that he's emerged from. But I think in the majority, ANC voters will stick with the party. So I don't see this very below 40% scenario for the ANC. But even if it does happen, then the game shifts completely, and we might see the ANC having to eventually go into a coalition with MK and parties like MK and the EFF in order to bolster its national support.
Yeah. Best possible scenario for the ANC under a coalition setting?
Best possible scenario is a relatively likely one, that it falls between 45 and 51%, and then it just cobbles together small parties to form a relatively easy coalition that it will govern at a national level, beyond 2024. But that would also, that would bring much needed stability. But that wouldn't necessarily mean the game hasn't changed, because we know that if the ANC does fall to about 45%, it will mean that it has potentially lost another province, either Gauteng or KwaZulu-Natal. So we will, even though that is a good outcome for the ANC, it'll still mean that power dynamics in the country are fundamentally shifting.
Yeah, I mean, we have seen some parties banding together under the Multi-Charter party that's led by the DA. Talk to me about the role of that. Does it make things more complex, or could it provide some sort of cushion for a kind of coalition government?
I think the multi-party charter, I was very skeptical of it at first. I thought it was never going to finish successfully. It was never going to cross the line numerically. Let me put it that way, in Parliament. Yeah. But it looks like the multi-party charter is shaping up to maybe put a little bit of wind in the DA sails, since its electoral performance has been stalling. But this charter saw it working together with, for example, the IFP in KwaZulu-Natal. As a result of that partnership, the DA leader John Steenhuisen says 16 councillors, councillors are now under the charter, under the following by-election. So it has worked for the DA and the MPC in that way. Whether it has a similar impact nationally and provincially is yet to be seen, Zanati.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time and for your insights today, Natasha. Really appreciate it. That was acting editor for Financial Mail, Natasha Marrian.